I have to say, on Wednesday, I thought that Angela Rayner was maybe going to
tough it out,
make it through, but it turned out that the independent report, in its final sentence, basically said that she had failed to take the advice which was necessary to reach the highest standards expected in public life, and at that moment, she is out and gone.
Well, the only way she could survive, as we discussed it, was she needed to be able to show in writing, emails, whatever it was, that she'd taken legal and financial advice, and the legal and financial advice was wrong. But in fact, in the end, it was her who was wrong because she didn't take the advice that was required in her position. I think it's a tragedy, given the way she's clawed herself up from incredibly tough circumstances, which everybody knows. But in the end, you're the housing secretary and you've paid the wrong rate of stamp duty. Maybe to be in the transport secretary, you might have been able to survive. But if you're the housing secretary, you couldn't. And she's lost everything. She's paid an incredibly high price for this carelessness, recklessness, because she's lost her job as a housing secretary, Deputy Prime Minister, Labour Deputy Leader, and how's she going to pay now that big mortgage? Some people have no sympathy for her, others will because of the involvement of the disabled child.
Problem was
she made a big mistake, has made a big price.
Catastrophic mistake.
But she gave the impression that she had taken the advice, and when it hadn't, in the end, it's the things you say when you're under pressure which often trip you up.
A succession of ministers, they came on your programme, they came on lots of programmes, say she's paid the right amount, she's done everything proper, it's wrong to suggest otherwise. We had the Prime Minister, no less, telling us on Monday, stop briefing against her, she's an incredible person, it's a mistake to brief against her. She hadn't done the basic checks to establish whether she'd paid the stamp duty. Unforgivable for a Cabinet Minister, especially if you're the Housing Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister. Unforgivable, and I'm afraid the sympathy here is limited.
When I went to buy
had that row about tax last year, you'd thought that she would have been
even more so.
Super careful.
No, absolutely. I thought she'd have fully armoured up, knowing there's been controversies before. They could come along again. I'm not going to allow that to happen. When I bought my house on England's northeast Riviera last year, and you're
still waiting for the invite.
You're asked, it's in the post. You're asked to tick a box. Do you own any other properties? No, sole property. This is how much stamp duty you pay. If you go on the Inland Revenue website, the HMRC website, you see if you've got a trust or whatever, it's got to be declared because it affects how you pay. Now, most of us are not in that trust land, but she was in a trust land because she'd sold her stake in the other house up in the northwest into the trust for a child who medically disabled, has compensation, and so on, needs to set him up for life. It's just... She's behaved like somebody who had no other property when, in fact, in law, she was deemed to have another property.
And she also, let's not forget, when she was in opposition, she was first out of the block to attack the Tories. If there was even a whiff of potentially wrongdoing, resign. It was her favourite word, resign. You've got to resign. Scandal, corruption. She's been hoisted on her own petard.
Were you surprised that, I mean, look, so she leaves the Cabinet...
Yeah.
But she also resigns as the elected deputy leader, plunges Labour into a big election for a deputy leader, and at a time when the government's unpopular, Keir Starmer is unpopular, the whole argument now is going to be about, we were reading The Guardian front page, Starmer must stop making mistakes. There's going to be a queue of candidates all criticising the government, and they'll all be thinking, if Keir Starmer doesn't last through next year, this may look like the election of the deputy leader, but is it a pre-run for a leadership election to come? So, I mean, it is a politically huge event.
Labour's constitution is constructed, it's almost impossible to unseat a sitting Prime Minister, sitting leader Prime Minister. We require special conferences and all sorts. But Angela Rayner, by going in this way, she might be able to come back down the line. If she sets out her story, goes on a masochism strategy, eats humble pie, I got it wrong, I understand. Peter Mandelson beat Lazarus and came back from the dead twice in the last Labour
a bit more politically adroit than Angela Rayner.
But she was a huge loss, though, to the Labour government because she connected with people up north and she was popular.
Except not paying your taxes is never going to make you popular.
You're quite right. You're quite right. And she had said every pound dodged is another pound you don't have for public services and so on. and you can make an honest mistake.
It was a big tax.
It's a mistake. She's paid a big price.
It was a huge tax dodge, 40,000. Come on.
I suspect she won't be fined by HMRC because she'll have corrected the mistake so early, and you pay the extra money.
You didn't bite on my question, Kevin, which was, what does this actually mean for the government and the Labour Party? This deputy leadership election, isn't it going to be hugely challenging?
All right. The government is battered again. It's in a worse position. I wasn't particularly impressed by the cabinet reshuffle. Angela Rayner going, you have a deputy leadership election. That always creates divisions. It never unites because you see people are going to be running against Starmer's position.
Yeah.
They're going to be in favour of a wealth tax. They're going to be in favour of getting rid of the two-child poverty cap by and large. It's going to expose lots of rips.
And it's going on for months.
So actually,
it's quite hard to run for it if you're in the
Starmer.
cabinet, isn't it? Because the cabinet members will have to defend the government position, and the other deputy leadership candidates are going to snipe from the outside. I'm not sure it's easy to win from the inside on this.
Yeah, because unless he puts up a lackey from within the cabinet to run for it, who's seen as his candidate, but I think that would backfire.
Well, they've got to get the votes.
Yeah,
you've got to get the way Labour rules are constructed. The Tory party's a free for all. Reform is basically a dictatorship with Farage. But Labour here, you've got to get 20% of MPs, about 80 to nominate. You'll try and rush the contest to try and stop outsiders getting it. But no, there's going to be divisions exposed. There's going to be a debate. But there needs to be a debate because Labour is doing so badly. Why is it doing so badly in the polls now? Well, we'll hear that in the debate, won't we? And a lot of it is around Starmer. We can't get away from it. It's proved to be a poor PM.
Yeah, last Monday, remember, we had a Foreign Secretary who's going to be in government for 5 years. New Foreign Secretary now. Home Secretary's doing a great job on migration. New Home Secretary. Does his word mean anything?
I was saying earlier that...
And he had full confidence in Angela Rayner.
I was saying earlier, Margaret Thatcher, Tony Blair, David Cameron, none of them did a big reshuffle of the top jobs in the first year. No. In fact, they all waited for the whole of the first term, pretty much. In some cases, it's quite an unusual thing to throw it all up in the air, especially when you said that your focus is delivery, because the one thing which the civil service finds very hard is a brand new set of people who have to start from scratch over again.
Tony Blair, in 1997 to 2001, went through his entire first term, his first government, without changing the Home Secretary, the Foreign Secretary or the Chancellor.
Yeah. David Cameron, pretty much the same.
Meanwhile, we do have a new Home Secretary, and her name is Shabana Mahmood. And is she going to get a grip? Andrew, I mean, you said the former Home Secretary was doing a good job. Well, if she was, how come the Prime Minister replaced her? And is Shabana Mahmood going to get a grip on small boats? And is that seen as the big issue?
It is seen as a big issue, without a doubt, although let's not forget the cost of living crisis.
I would say on the people who've got in touch with us this morning, it is half and half. People saying small boats and immigration.
Yeah.
Did you get a text from someone while we were talking? Yeah. Just pop your phone on silent. Do you want to check who it is?
Perhaps it's the favourite call I missed yesterday at 3 o'clock.
No. Yeah.
It would have been louder and more alarming than that.
He's new to TV, so I forgot to put it.
So unusual.
Put your phone on silent.
Forgive me.
Was it somebody from the nightclub?
Is it the care home again? Asking why you're out.
I can't be both.
I thought you would just go to the bar and suddenly you're on my TV screen.
Do you want to check
No,
to
I don't,
it?
actually.
Quite often people do get texts from people they know saying, you're on television.
Yes, exactly. It's probably what someone's saying.
As if we all didn't know.
I fundamentally disagree with what you're saying, Andrew. No, you disagree with him.
No, have you switched your phone off?
Maybe it was Andrew getting the emergency alert, not 2 minutes late, but about 24 hours.
What's going to change, Andrew, under the new Home Secretary?
She's already indicated, or it's being briefed, that they're going to... Everything is on the table, particularly the European Convention on Human Rights. Are they going to change these treaties, which are very old and were brought in the early 50s, and to stop, perhaps, migrants using the right to family life to stay here? But... That
all sounds very familiar, by the way, because when I interviewed the Home Secretary, previous Home Secretary last week, that's exactly what she said.
And also, we gather there's going to be a one-in, one-out deal with Germany. That went well with France, didn't it?
It hasn't even happened with France. The deal's been signed, but there's been no one-in, one-out.
But I think it's significant he's put a Muslim woman in that job, because I think there are going to be... If what the briefing is right, it's going to be some tough decisions, and I think he thinks it'd be more saleable if you've got a Muslim presenting the changes.
The misogynistic and Islamophobic abuse of Mahmood on social media after her she was appointed the worst of our country. It is vile thugs, absolutely horrible people. But what will the difference be? Be a change in tone.
Yeah.
Is she really going to open big army camps? Well, the last lot tried that, and you get local opponents to opening big army camps, detention centres, reception centres, call them what you like. She'll talk much tougher. That's true. But will that work? Because Farage has his mass deportations. He was against them, then he's for him, then he's going to send women and children just to the Taliban, then he's not, then he is, and it's all over the place. The truth is, it's hard yards that will make a difference, and Yvette Cooper was making those hard yards and doing the hard work. Now, some of the fruits of those hard yards will be enjoyed by Shabana Mahmood, but will she make a big difference? It's not the European Convention on Human Rights, this. It's just not. It's UK law, and it's the fact people are coming over in boats and they get here in the first place. And then we had a system that just couldn't cope and couldn't assess people and decide whether they had a legal right to stay or not, although deportations are up.
I think Yvette, if the hard yards pay off, and it's Shabana Mahmood as Home Secretary who finally can show the progress, I think Yvette will think, good, fabulous. That's exactly what I wanted. I think the tension is, with these things, is that if you say we've succeeded before you've actually got all the elements in place, it backfires. And the pressure in politics, especially these days, is to say within a day, I know what I'm doing, I've done it, it's all done. And I think Yvette consistently said, until it's all in place, you can't declare victory and,
And still, what is the deterrent to stop these people getting in the dinghy? What is the deterrent? I still haven't heard it.
Well, reform would say the fact that you're going to get deported pretty quickly when you're here. It's interesting, the reshuffle completely overshadowed the reform conference. However, some things did emerge, I'm not sure how much they got a big message over, but we got to see Dame Andrea Jenkins in a sparkly jumpsuit singing a song called I'm an Insomniac.
She wrote it herself.
That she wrote herself. I'm not sure that was necessarily the headline that they wanted. Judge for yourselves. We also had the apparently Britain's favourite political prisoner, Lucy Connolly, introduced on stage as a living symbol of two-tier Britain. She got a huge cheer from the audience. She was freed from Peterborough prison after being sentenced last year to 31 months.
Pleading guilty.
For pleading guilty for stirring up racial hatred against asylum seekers.
Can you imagine at a Labour or Conservative conference having somebody brought on stage who pleaded guilty to, a racist charge and then being celebrated on stage? I mean, it's quite something what's happened to our politics, isn't it?
It turned on its head. Look, I think a lot of people think the sentence was excessive.
A majority,
but she pleaded guilty,
she did.
And she said, "If I'm a racist, so be it."
A majority of people think it was right or should have been higher. Polling shows that. You can argue about the sentence. I get that. You can argue about whether she should have been released without serving 60% of her time. No, it happens with prisoners, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Other cases, you want them to be jailed, and not saying all mams shouldn't be jailed, but to lionise her like that. And as you go, I don't know. Are we doing COVID vaccines?
Yes. So a vaccine sceptic told the party conference he believed that the COVID vaccine was a significant factor in the diagnosis of cancer of members of the royal family.
COVID sceptic, who is the advisor to the Reform Party on their health policy.
Yeah.
I mean, he is their health advisor who says that he thinks the King's cancer may have been caused by taking
and presumably
the vaccine.
Catherine, the Princess of Wales.
Andrea, it's jaw-dropping.
Jaw-dropping. Completely, because the health of the King and the King, we know so little about it. It is so tightly protected, which is part of the reason the King will not see Harry, in my view, because he doesn't trust him, because he talks too much about the King. So this was Georgia, because he's telling the conference that he's got it from a fellow health professional, that the King's cancer is because something to do with one of the vaccines.
We have had a rise.
It was, I have to say, he was heard in... there was almost, you could feel the disbelief in the audience as he was speaking.
We have had a rise, a return to our country of children with measles because of the scare about the MMR vaccine. I would have thought, you know, that cross-party, the health expertise is that not taking the MMR jab was a terrible thing and that, you know, it needed to be tackled. And now to be in a position where it looks like endorsing that kind of vaccine scepticism, I mean, it's just such a change.
Yeah. It was pretty awful, and he's pretty rapidly disowned. Didn't Trump say something ridiculous?
Yeah,
about
and of
COVID?
course, yeah,
And bleach.
Bleach, yeah, and of course he was it disinfectant? Anyway, sorry. Farage is wanting to attract all the anti-vaxxers and everyone who thinks the Earth is flat. And now, of course, he'll be vaccinated himself, Farage, and he'll say, oh, you know, I don't agree with it, and he'll just say it's free speech. That's what they say.
This is what Reform said. Reform said it does not endorse what he said, but it does believe in free speech. But the point about being a party conference is you choose to put people on your platform. And so if you put them on the platform and they say these things, I mean, that isn't simply endorsing free speech, that is also giving them a platform.
Any responsible party or any responsible person, if you had a health advisor who was all of a sudden going around saying there might be a link between the COVID vaccine and 2 cases of cancer in the royal family...
The most high-profile cases of cancer.
They would be now very much your former health advisor.
I would say this, though. The atmosphere at the conference was remarkably upbeat. Really, there's real confidence in the air. They feel it's much more professional than it was. They've got big sponsors now.
Well, the polling is in their favour.
Massively in their favour. And I know that when we go to the Labour conference, it's going to be much gloomier, and the Tory conference even gloomier. Because
somebody said to me that they were learning the lessons of New Labour 94 to 97 and adopting quite a lot of the Tony Blair techniques which got Labour into power in 97. It's been a very conscious way.
Much slicker altogether. And, of course, Farage is the great communicator. Blair admits it himself in that interview very recently. He said he's the most impressive communicator in modern politics. And he spoke twice, and he spoke well.
But I went to Birmingham for it, but you try and question, so Farage, about his tax affairs and the house.
Well, that's your headline in the Daily Mirror
and the house he said he'd bought in Clacton, which he hadn't bought. His girlfriend, his French girlfriend, my migrant's all right, it's all the others aren't, given he used to have a German wife too. Anyway...
where are we going with this? Where are we going with this, Maguire?
But he doesn't like free speech when he's asked questions that he doesn't want.
So your headline, how much tax do you pay, Nigel? Nigel Farage slammed for saying he will not publish his tax returns.
Which all the other party leaders do publish now, I think.
But he's not going to do it, and he's earned about £1 million from second jobs, including pushing gold bullion.
They were one of the sponsors at the conference.
They were one of the few corporate stands there. Heathrow was the big one, but of course Heathrow will quite like, when it wants to expand, reform opposing climate controls, pollution controls.
If you go back to the stamp duty thing, he said back in the spring to Sky News that he was buying a house in Clacton, his constituency. He's now clarified that it wasn't him buying the house, it was his partner. If he had bought the house, he would have been liable to the higher level of stamp duty on a second home, whereas...
Like Angela Rayner.
The suggestion is that if it's her... I mean, is that just sensible family tax planning? And is that the kind of thing that as a politician you shouldn't do?
I think, didn't he say on that interview, we are buying? And then what he said, what I should have said was, she is. I mean, it's all there on the land registry. It's her purchase.
When he was initially asked last November about how much time he actually spent in Clacton, he told Sky News, and this is written in quotation marks on the brief that we have, I've just exchanged contracts on the house that I'll be living therein.
Right.
Is that good enough? I've bought a house in Clacton. What more do you want me to do?
Tell the truth.
Nigel Farage has admitted he misspoke when he claimed to have bought a house in his constituency of Clacton, saying the property is in fact solely owned by his long-term partner.
And they reduced their tax bill. But maybe that's OK. I just wonder whether, if it had been Angela Rayner 2 weeks ago and last week, whether that was OK for her to do. While there's some, is there some two-tiered justice when it comes to tax matters?
No, if it's her house, it's her house.
Yeah, it's not that they've reduced their tax bill.
Exactly.
If it's hers,
yeah, she's paid the right tax.
Paid the right amount of tax.
The difference.
The question is why he said that he'd exchanged contracts when actually it was her.
Well, the difference. What got Angela Rayner? She broke the law.
Oh, no, sure.
Exactly. That's
2 weeks ago, it was all about, was it a way of legally avoiding stamp duty as opposed to what turned out to be a mistake?
But he thinks very carefully before he speaks. Farage speaks quite slowly and deliberately, and the suspicion is he intended to mislead over Clacton, just publicly, not legally, not with the HMRC, and he's got quite a big property portfolio. But no one calls him 5 or 6 houses, Farage. Well, the right was Rayner calling her 3 when in fact she had 1 or 1.5.
Yeah. So did Jeremy Hunt. So did Michael Beecher. They've always been these politicians who have these property portfolios.
There are a couple of Labour MPs with big property portfolios.
Meanwhile, right, let's talk about Prince Harry.
Yeah.
Because he's back for a big charity event. It's called the Well Child Awards. It's very close to his heart. He's going to be presenting an award. In his last interview, that explosive interview with the BBC after he lost the court case over his security, he said the words, "I don't know how much longer my father has. He won't speak to me because of all this security stuff, but it would be nice to reconcile." In the meantime, we've seen the King's advisors have a meeting with Prince Harry's advisors. A photograph of that was taken. So do we think this is the week, with Prince Harry being back in the country and the King being in the country, he's not on a royal tour at the moment, could they meet up? Is a reconciliation on the cards?
Well, we know at the beginning of the week the King is up in Balmoral, Birkhall, private time. I don't think Harry's going to go to Scotland, so it's whether he can fit it in the week. I don't know, is the answer.
Do you think that the King wants to reconcile with his son, or do you think the King is worried that if they have a reconciliation, Prince Harry will talk about it?
I think it's possible to want both. I think probably, of course, he wants to talk to his son. It's his son. He's a sick man, and but he's been let down before. Because there have been conversations which have then been regaled to the world via the American media.
Even that detail, Kim, and I know you're not a royalist and you profess to not care particularly much, but that detail about I don't know how long my father has left, that is not the message from Buckingham Palace, is it? It's sort of business as usual, and he'll go on.
And he's done a record number of engagements in the last year. We've seen
Look, the bad.
Kevin's a granddad though, and a granddad not seeing his grandchildren, that would upset.
No, it would upset me absolutely, and I think the bad blood flowing and the dysfunctionality in the royal family and why we shouldn't put them on a pedestal and somehow look up to them. But if just on a human level. You would want any family to reconcile, but I can see now, Charles, the dad, is thinking, right, you've got to do it on my terms, and he's got him running around and giving all these interviews and eating a bit of humble pie and probably giving promises. I won't bring a Netflix crew along. It won't be in my next book, or I won't tell somebody who will then write about it elsewhere.
Is Harry going to monetize any meeting with his father? Because he has in the past.
The attacks on Charles, the accusations of racism, having a go at Camilla, the wife, your stepmother.
And at your brother, that...
Oh, and your brother who...
of the dog bowl fight.
Yeah, ripped the necklace.
And no chance of reunion
it is
this week. And at some points, apparently, they're going to be just miles apart, William and Harry, this week. I'd lay money they won't talk to.
It is. It's a great soap opera, isn't it?
But you can't have the King having his son giving a running commentary on their relationship in the public domain. Unless they know that Harry will respect that confidence, he won't meet him.